Hi folks, Owen Ryan here, wellness coach and the creator of the 360 Journal. Welcome to the first video in the trilogy of how to run a smarter, faster road race. In this video, I'll be focusing on something that is known as the runner's line, which is another way of saying getting from the start line of a race to the finish line by taking the most direct and shortest measured route. Now, just for the record, that does not mean taking any shortcuts. The longer the race, the more important it becomes to stick as closely as possible to this runner's line. Now, some of the major races, mostly marathons, will paint a blue line on the road so you can follow this. Now, that's a dream because it takes all the thinking out of it for you. However, blue lines are the exception. So why is this runner's line important? Because if you don't aim to find the runner's line as you run, you'll spend more time out in the course, and as a result, you may potentially miss your personal best time. Now, have you ever finished a race and looked at your GPS watch and thought this was measured too long? Now, mostly that's because you're off the runner's line. The official measuring tool for measuring races is a Jones's counter. Now, this is a gizmo that attaches to the front wheel of your bike. So let's look at this runner's line and how it's measured. Take a standard around the block example. And by the way, it's much easier to find the runner's line in a city because you can use the buildings as reference and watch the runners ahead of you. Now, I'll come back to that point in a moment because it's not without its potential problems. So looking at this visual, you can see that it's all right turns. The person with the Jones's counter measures this 30 centimeters from the curb. So that's all nice and neat. However, when a runner approaches it, he may not be as tight and tidy due to crowds, or maybe has no awareness of this runner's line. See the red line? By being out there, that person is adding distance to their race. Let me give you a slightly exaggerated example to put some numbers against it. Here you can see a left turn. The blue runner's line is 30 centimeters from the curb, but the runner, represented by the red line, has taken a long arc to go around the corner. The pink dot shows the start of the turn into the corner for both blue and red lines, and the orange dot shows the completion of the turn. So let's put some numbers against this. The blue line is 10 meters from pink to orange dot. The red line is 22 meters from pink to orange dot. That's a difference of 10 meters, folks. If there was 10 such turns on the course, then you would be out by 100 meters, which could be as much as 40 seconds added to your race. Serious stuff, isn't it? Let's take a look at a country example where there is no curb. This is the runner's line on a bend in the road. Now, are you normally on that line? Are you somewhere out here? Let's look at how roads and bends are measured. Before we do, it's important to stress that roads are measured, or should be measured, based on whether or not the road is closed or open. So what I'm about to show you does not give you clearance to run across roads to get to the other side so you can pursue the shortest distance. That would be dangerous. Whatever you decide to do, of course, is completely your call. But I think you should always be cautious and aware of what's happening around you, especially if you're going around blind corners. Closed roads still involve the risk of a rogue car getting onto the course. Take nothing for granted, folks, and stay safe. I suggest you find out if a road race has closed roads. Is it all closed, or is it just a section? And where are these sections? Or are none of the roads closed for the race? For most races, work with the assumption that the roads are not closed. Err on the side of caution always. Here's an example of a winding road that has a full road closure. As you can see, the runner's line tips off all the corners to make the line as straight as possible. Now here's an example of a winding road that does not have a full road closure. only one lane of the road is closed. You can see that the runner's line does not pass the cones in the middle of the road. So if this was a 5-kilometer course, for example, the finish line would be further down than the first example we showed where the roads were closed. In a moment, I'm going to talk about city races and congestion at the corners, and I'm going to show you a pretty impressive aerial view of it. The start of a very large race can be congested, especially if they're going around blocks in the city. To be honest with you, this will be a factor that you'll need to consider and live with as part of a large city race. I've been to large city races where I've come to a complete stop because I, like everybody else, was trying to take the runner's line into the corner by looking ahead at the buildings and where people were running. So sometimes being exact about the runner's line can actually go against you. When you get jammed in a corner, the person behind you might push you, which of course might annoy you, and you'll lose your pace and have to go again, which of course is costing you that precious time. It is a good idea to know the layout of the first 2 kilometers of a race so you can prepare a strategy. Here's some aerial footage of a race which shows you the different plans or lack of plans that people have. It shows people deciding how they're going to make space for themselves on the road. It's interesting, isn't it? Some are in good positions based on what is ahead, but some, we'll call them the accidental ultramarathon runners, are really adding distance going on the path to the left. As you can see, now that is a bad call to be on the left path when the road swings to the right up front. Most are tucked into the right hand side because there is a right hand turn coming further up. The highest density of runners is over at the right, and some are running freely on the left hand side. Now yes, they are off the runner's line, but they are able to go at their own pace. This is where you have to think about what best suits you. It is what I call the compromise line. Do you stay rigid to the runner's line and have to slow down or potentially stop due to crowding? Or do you keep your pace and rhythm going further out from the curb until the race spreads out a little bit more? Let's give an example of a tight corner at the start of a race. Take a look at this photo. This guy on the runner's line looks like he's completely stopped. The best place to be, in my opinion, is where this lady is situated or a little bit further out in the middle, as it avoids getting jammed into the corner and having to stop and then start all over again. So to summarize this video, you will run a faster road race if you run a shorter road race. By looking ahead at the direction of the runners in front of you, you'll be able to see what direction the road is taking. Now you won't get this right all of the time, that's for sure. However, there will be a benefit to you if you work on this. Think back to my example on the left turn, showing an extra 10 meters gained by being off the runner's line. If you miss your personal best time by 1 second, that's where the time could have been made up. Okay, we'll leave it there. See you in the second video on how to run a faster, smarter road race, sponsored by the 360 Journal. Good luck.